The Election Commission will announce dates for the all-crucial assembly polls in Uttar Pradesh, Punjab, Goa, Uttarakhand and Manipur at 3:30 p.m. this afternoon. According to sources, UP assembly polls are likely to be held in 6 to 8 phases. Polls in Punjab will be held in 3 phases. Manipur elections could be held in 2 phases, whereas in Uttarakhand and Goa, there will be a single-phase election. These elections are touted to be the big semi-final before the 2024 general elections. They are crucial not just for the ruling BJP in Uttar Pradesh, Goa, Manipur and Uttarakhand and for the Congress in Punjab, but also for challengers like the Samajwadi Party in UP, the Aam Aadmi Party in Punjab. Of the 5 poll-bound states, the BJP is in power in 4. And what will also be very important to note would be the kind of COVID restrictions the Election Commission imposes on voters and on political parties. Will there be curbs on election rallies? That will be a critical thing to look out for when the Election Commission announces the dates of polling. Rahul Srivastav joins us now at this moment, our National Affairs Editor. He is on a tour of Uttar Pradesh, has been travelling extensively through the state. Rahul, an exciting afternoon, lots at stake. You've been travelling through the state of Uttar Pradesh and not since 1989 has a government been repeated. So Yogi Adityanath and Prime Minister Modi will be hoping to break that jinx of chief ministers not getting repeated, and we'll know very soon when the election dates are announced. There's a buzz that's been doing the rounds about the possibility of the polling schedule being such that polls starting not from the west as they usually do, but from the east this time. Is that at all serious, or is that just something that politicians are hoping for but aren't certain about at all?
Rahul, I think a lot of anxiety among political parties over the kind of campaigning which will be allowed, whether it will be severely restricted, partially restricted or completely restricted. Remember that UP politics is now extremely personality driven and interactive campaigning in which there is direct interface between leaders and the followers and the voters. That is very critical. For example, an Akhilesh Yadav on a day's tour holds something close to 40 odd Nukkad meetings, 7 or 8 of public meetings, shaking hands with people, getting into crowds. Narendra Modi, for example, large crowds, motivation, people from 5 to 10 districts brought to one single political rally to send out a deeper message. That, if it gets restricted, Rahul, I think that's what political parties are worried. Because, you see, post-announcement of the dates is the time when candidates have to be introduced to the public. That's the time when the final push for the election really comes. And if there are restrictions, then the political parties will have to rework their strategy, that how that interactive element is going to be brought in. Yes, there is also an anxiety among political parties that which phase could well be the first. And if there are going to be 8 phases, because last time around there were 7 for poll protocol issues, COVID and others, there could be a longer election. But where, what might be the spacing could well also be the issue, because for political parties in the COVID period to be mobilizing their resources could well also be a problem. Then there is also anxiety that once polling is allowed, whether any kind of road shows will be allowed. Because if you recall the last 3 elections in UP, the 2 top parties, say right now, Akhilesh Yadav, Samajwadi Party and the BJP had extensive road shows which drew a lot of crowds and did a lot of mobilization as far as parties are concerned. All these elements are going to be getting answered, say, in 1.5 hours from now.
Paliwal joins us. She's tracking the Election Commission. There have been deliberations between Health Ministry officials, those involved in fighting COVID and the EC top brass. Are there likely to be serious curbs, Aishwarya, on the kind of campaigning netas are able to do, or do you think they'll just make the right noises but not put any significant curbs?
No, Rahul, this time definitely from what I am understanding from the Election Commission, not only will strict guidelines be put in place, the Commission will also make sure that those guidelines are followed to the T. The big example is Bengal. We saw just after the Bengal elections, there was an explosion of cases in the state, and the Calcutta High Court had dropped the Election Commission, going ahead and calling it irresponsible. So the Commission is very well aware of what can happen. 5 states, Uttar Pradesh being one of the largest states in the country, if we see a third wave coming in that state, it will not reflect nicely on the Election Commission, which is why we are seeing the Election Commission, which will announce the guidelines also today from what I am gathering from our sources. They will make sure that there is a cap on the number of people who enter the polling booths. It was reduced from 1,500. Now it will be reduced further. Also, Rahul, let me tell you one thing which the Commission is now looking at doing is putting the onus on the political parties. So this time, Election Commission will tell the parties it's your duty also to make sure that we don't see a rise in the number of cases in these states. They will also tell the political parties...
Sachin Pilot is one of the senior Congress leaders, one of the top young guns of the Congress, as it were. The Congress facing very serious challenges in Punjab, where they're in power but seem to be at odds with each other. Also, in with a shot in Uttarakhand and Goa, but again unable to get their strategy totally in order. Supriya Bhardwaj is with Sachin Pilot live at this time. Supriya, take it away.
Well, Rahul, Sachin Pilot is with us. What's your take first and foremost, because the poll dates will be announced, but this time it is going to be different because Omicron's threat looms large.
Well, it's certainly a challenge. We'll have to wait and see what new safeguards the EC presents before us. It'll be a challenge for sure, but I think the ultimate decision lies with the Election Commission, and we will go by whatever the EC decides. I keep saying this again, that it should not be seen that there's pressure from any party or any government over a body like the EC. The Election Commission should really not just be fair, but seen to be fair in terms of what they decide about scheduling, about the do's and don'ts, precautions, etc., that parties and people can have to undertake for the 5 states that go to poll.
This pilot challenge is also there in Punjab for Congress Party. Uttarakhand, you are the main challengers. How do you see the situation in both these states? And also, as far as UP is concerned, a lot is at stake as far as Congress is concerned, because it is fighting the election on the face of Priyanka Gandhi.
Well, there are 5 states that go to polls. Punjab, I think we are in a very strong wicket, and we are bound to come back into power in Punjab. The number of parties fighting election, whether it's AAP or BJP or Akali Dal, I don't think really have the backing of the people. Uttarakhand people have really displayed already that they're ready for a change. And Uttar Pradesh, interestingly, the Prime Minister has been making visits so often now that the CM is almost taken a backseat, So therefore there must be some feedback they have gotten from UP where they must know that their ground is slipping. That's why the aggression, the almost twice a week rallies by the Prime Minister. So there is some fear that they will not get the same support they got last time. I think UP is set for a change, and the Congress Party is presenting a very viable blueprint for what UP needs as an alternative. Now, we don't know the results until the votes are counted, but the narrative, the struggles, the action by the party and Priyanka Gandhi, I think are all for people to see. I think we're putting up a formidable challenge, and we hope to do very well, even in Uttar Pradesh.
You have been campaigning in all these states. If we talk about Punjab, how do you see that situation? Because a lot of people are saying it's a mess now, because Sidhu is speaking in a different tone, and other people, our leaders are speaking in a different tone. Do you agree with this narrative?
See, the people of Punjab are very wise. They've seen what the BJP has done in terms of the farm laws and under what pressure they had to withdraw it. And even now, 700 log marne ke baad bhi, there is no single apology from the BJP leadership. So BJP and Akali are not an option. And the Aam Aadmi Party is already disintegrated. So to my mind, the most suitable party to come back to power is the Congress Party. And I think no matter what the media speculates, the Congress is a united front party in Punjab. And people are going to vote for the governance that we want to provide for the next 5 years. And the Chief Minister is doing a good job.
We are also hearing that you guys have tweaked your strategy. A lot of virtual campaigning will take place.
We have to. You see, now, whatever the guidelines are, and we as a party are very, very conscious that we don't want to put people's health at risk. Elections will come and go, but we shouldn't be seen to be playing with people's lives. Therefore, whatever precautions we can take from our own side, besides what the EC mandates, we will do that. We were the first party to announce that we will now insist on doing virtual interactions like Priyanka Gandhi is doing today, and she's doing all across Uttar Pradesh and other states. So we have to see, people must look at leadership in the political parties as to set an example, to lead from the front, to be what people expect you to be. We don't want to be seen to be irresponsible, much like the BJP is, in terms of doing campaigning and rallies, in the midst of the pandemic. I don't think that has gone down very well with the people either.
How do you see the Battle of Uttar Pradesh? You were there. How do you see it? Because both the parties, whether it is Samajwadi Party or the BJP, are going all out. Congress is also there on the grassroots level. What about BSP?
Yeah, I don't think BSP is a factor anymore. They have some vote bank in Uttar Pradesh, but I don't think we haven't seen Mayawati ji campaigning at all in Uttar Pradesh. It could be for tactical reasons, I don't know. But like I keep saying, so the BJP is in power in Uttar Pradesh. They have been in power in Delhi. So the kind of mismanagement, fiscal, post-corona, the kind of governance we've seen, the Gunda Raj, the bulldozer Raj, people want to change. And they've seen the other parties also. The Congress and Priyanka ji are presenting a really, for women, for young people, for farmers, a very clear, candid blueprint. Not slogans, not Hindu-Muslim, not caste, not polarization, but real governance agendas. The people are ultimately the ones who will choose, but I think we'll do remarkably well in Uttar Pradesh.
Will Hindu versus Hindutva narrative, which was set from Jaipur, will continue in these elections also?
I think we were just trying to put things in perspective. There are definitions that the BJP has been misusing for its political purposes, using religion and caste and the sentiment of polarization. Many parties are using it. BJP is obviously the top of the list. But I think we focus ourselves on what we should do as an opposition. And in all the 5 states that we go into elections, we have a manifesto, we'll have an open debate, and we, in fact, have sought views of the people and not pushed our own views on the people of the states that are going to elections. So I'm quite confident that the Congress party will do really well.
Thank you very much for that, Supriya. I want to go across now to Sahil Joshi. Sahil is in Mumbai. He'll lead our coverage for the Goa elections. It will be interesting this time in Goa, Sahil, because you've got the Aam Aadmi Party and the Trinamool in the fray, along with the Congress and the BJP and the other regional parties in Goa. How could that change the election scenario, given that there are 2 other regional parties who are new to the fray, who haven't been traditional players in the Goa political matrix?
Well, Goa, for sure, what we call in pure Hindi, khichdi politics, what we can see in Goa at this point of time. And very interestingly, right now, Prashant Kishore, the master strategist, is in Goa. And what I'm hearing at this point of time is that he's also trying to stitch an alliance with the Congress. Yesterday, one of the Congress's ally Goa Forward's chief Vijay Sardesai made a tweet that there should be a grand alliance against the BJP. And it was responded by Mahua Moitra, who is in charge of TMC in Goa. But it looks like that the Congress is in no mood to have any kind of electoral alliance or understanding with the TMC. But at the same time, the sources are also saying that there might be a kind of a post-poll scenario. The Congress and Aam Aadmi Party may think of coming together. So this time Goa has become really interesting. This is going to be the first election even for the BJP post Manohar Parrikar's death. Manohar Parrikar has been a towering personality for the BJP in Goa since many years. In fact, he's the one who actually brought BJP to fray where BJP was completely non-existent some 15 years back. So that is something is going to be really interesting. And as you rightly said, this is going to be a reality check for parties like TMC, Mamata Banerjee, who claim that Goa is their test lab if they can expand beyond West Bengal from East Coast to the West Coast, where the Congress is going more of on a weaker side, whether they can build their own party there and replace Congress in states like Goa. That is going to be challenging, but it's definitely going to be a reality check for the Congress, for the TMC as well, and as well for the Aam Aadmi Party. So Goa is going to be interesting. Nearly 50% of the MLAs, Rahul, this is really interesting, that after 2017, nearly 50% MLAs of the current assembly have switched side to some other party. So Goa, as I said, it's going to come up with some kind of a surprise.
I want to go across to the election intelligence dashboard. It's all set, locked and loaded, ready to go. This is EI 2.0. We've made significant changes after the general elections and then Bengal. We've redone not just how the election intelligence looks and feels, but we've also given you a full sense of several new configurations which will help draw out some very sharp insights on what you should expect. Now, the critical thing over here is really to look at Uttar Pradesh and then to look at what the starting point is. So if, for example, we were to look at the alliance-wise breakup of votes in Uttar Pradesh, first as far as seats are concerned, the BJP alliance starts off with 325, Akhilesh Yadav only at 54. So his principal contender, about a sixth of where the BJP starts out. That's as far as seats. But far more important than seats are votes, because the Samajwadi Party, even if we add the new allies who've just come on board, at the starting point is at 28%. Yogi Adityanath and the BJP are at 41%. That's a 13% gap between the challenger and the incumbent. And Rahul Srivastav, how much the SP is able to rise, and current estimates are that they will go up in terms of vote share, and how much the BJP falls, if at all the BJP will try and ensure that it stays above 40, and what happens to the BSP vote, which is at about 22% in 2017, the extent to which it comes down will be critical to determining what the power map of Uttar Pradesh looks like once all the votes have been counted. Rahul.
Rahul, there is a bit of a noise. Can you please repeat the question?
Okay, so my question is very simple. At the starting point, the BJP and its allies have 40% plus vote. Akhilesh Yadav and his allies start up with about 28% vote. That's a 13% gap. That, in what is now seen as a bipolar fight between the SP and the BJP, is a huge gap. So the challenge really is monumental for the Samajwadi Party to add to its Yadav Muslim caste combination, get new social configurations on this bandwagon to be able to challenge the BJP. That is the big question that will determine how Uttar Pradesh ends up when all the votes have been counted. Rahul.
Yes, Rahul. I think that's perhaps is the most crucial element of this election. Rahul, the last three elections we saw deep polarization and extreme popularity of Narendra Modi. And given that factor, what we saw was an overcurrent of polarization and popularity that was dictating the mandate. And the BJP walked away with 40% odd votes. The Samajwadi Party trailed. One, its top leadership was in disarray. Mulayam Singh Yadav and Akhilesh Yadav had a family spat in public. And that's where the BJP had an advantage, also because it could bring out a rainbow coalition of castes on the ground, bringing together many sub-caste groups and castes to create that perfect, what can be called a Hindu monolith. But since then, a lot of water has flown down the rivers in Uttar Pradesh. What I'm finding on the ground, that this acute polarization which dictated the mandate has become from an overcurrent to an undercurrent. The undercurrent, which used to be at one time Narendra Modi promising employment, opportunities, industrialization, growth and prosperity, which used to be one of the tying factors, used to be an undercurrent, is fast becoming some amount of disappointment is coming over the ground. Now, which one is going to dictate is going to be critical. What one can say is the BJP's advantage is that it has managed, though Akhilesh has put together a better caste chemistry by bringing in RLD backed by Jats, the Rajbhards and others in eastern UP, the BJP has managed to hold on some of the caste dominated entities which it had in 2017.
Okay.
One, very importantly, also it has added to the Hindutva factor by bringing in Yogi Adityanath. Even if the BJP falls by, say, 100 seats in UP, it will still have 212 odd seats. That means the BJP still has a margin. That means there has to be a wave to defeat the BJP. And is there a wave right now? One, it's not very apparent.
Okay, Priyanka Gandhi Vadra was in isolation because people in close association with her had tested COVID positive. She's speaking at this moment right ahead of the Election Commission's press conference. Let's listen to her.
उनकी मदद नहीं की, अत्याचार हो रहा है, बलात्कार हुआ है, अपराधियों पर आप एक्शन नहीं ले रहे हैं, उल्टा आप महिला के परिवार पर और महिला पर आरोप लगा रहे हैं। और उस परिवार पर क्या नहीं बीता, उन परिवारों पर क्या नहीं बीता, मैं बता भी नहीं सकती। इस मेरे पर, मुझ पर, मेरी राजनीति पर भी एक बहुत बहुत गहरा प्रभाव पड़ा है इन एक्सपीरियंसेस से, इन अनुभवों से। एक और अच्छा, ये इंटरेस्टिंग क्वेश्चन है। नफरत भाजपा की सबसे बड़ी ताकत है, इससे आप कैसे निपटेंगी? नफरत से निपटने का एक ही तरीका है, और ये कोई नया मेरा तरीका नहीं है, मैं नहीं कह रही हूँ। ये हमारे इतिहास में, हमारी संस्कृति में, वेदों में, पुराणों में, उसके बाद बुद्ध भगवान ने भी कहा, गुरु नानक जी ने भी कहा, नफ़रत का मुकाबला सिर्फ प्रेम कर सकता है। सिर्फ जो नकारात्मक चीज़ है उसके सामने कोई भी नकारात्मक चीज़ अगर हम डालें तो हम उसी चीज़ में उसी नकारात्मकता में हम फंस जाएंगे। नकारात्मक चीज़ों का मुकाबला सिर्फ सकारात्मक चीज़ें कर सकती हैं। इसलिए जब हमने ये अपनी कैंपेन्स शुरू की, ये लड़की हूँ लड़ सकती हूँ, और आगे आप देखेंगे कि हमारी 1-2 और कैंपेन्स भी हैं, सिर्फ सकारात्मक कैंपेन्स हैं। हम नहीं चाहते कि हम किसी भी नकारात्मक बात में पड़ें। हमें परवाह ये है कि हम विकास कैसे लाएंगे, हमें परवाह ये है कि हम महिलाओं को सशक्त कैसे करेंगे, हमें परवाह ये है कि हम नौजवानों को रोज़गार कैसे दिलाएंगे, हमें परवाह ये है कि जो तमाम हज़ारों नौजवान हैं जो बार बार परीक्षाएं दे रहे हैं, बार बार किसी एंट्रेंस टेस्ट के लिए या रोज़गार के लिए वो जितने टेस्ट होते हैं वो दे रहे हैं, किसी घोटाले की वजह से फिर से देना पड़ रहा है, टेस्ट देने के बाद आपको कट ऑफ मार्क आपका बदला जा रहा है। इन चीज़ों के साथ हम कैसे डील करेंगे, इनको कैसे हम हटाएंगे, बाधाएं कैसे हटाएंगे, ताकि जितने भी मौके हैं, चाहे रोज़गार के मौके हैं, सशक्त होने के मौके हैं, नौजवानों को मिले, महिलाओं को मिले, और लोग जो विकास होना चाहिए वो असली विकास हो। ये विकास नहीं कि आप चुनाव आ रहा है तो आपने एयरपोर्ट का उद्घाटन कर लिया, पता चला कि एयरपोर्ट तो बना ही नहीं है, चाइना की एयरपोर्ट आप सोशल मीडिया पे दिखा रहे हैं, आपके विज्ञापनों पे सारा दिख रहा है कि विकास आया है, लेकिन ज़मीन पे कुछ नहीं है। ज़मीन पे लोग त्रस्त हैं, परेशान हैं, किसान हो, दलित हो, महिलाएं हो, नौजवान हो, सब त्रस्त हैं। तो जो राजनीति में जो हिंसा लाना चाहते हैं, जो नफ़रत लाना चाहते हैं, उनका एक मकसद होता है। मकसद ये है कि आप उनसे सवाल ना करें, आप उनसे जो एक्चुअल चीज़ें हैं कि भाई तुम मेरे लिए कर क्या रहे हो, ये आप पूछोगे नहीं। तो इनका फ़ायदा कुछ ऐसी पार्टियों का ही होता है। अंत में आप सोचिए, आप नेता हैं, आपको जनता ने अपना प्रतिनिधि बना दिया। अब आपको मालूम है कि 5 साल बाद जब चुनाव आएगा तो मैं धर्म की बात करूँगा, मैं जाति की बात करूँगा, नफ़रत की बातें करूँगा, तो वोट मिल जाएगा मुझे। तो आप काम क्यों करेंगे? काम क्यों करेंगे आप काम तभी करेंगे ना जब आपको मालूम है कि 5 साल बाद आपको उस काम पे जवाब देना पड़ेगा, जवाबदेह बनना पड़ेगा। तो मैं समझती हूँ कि जो ये राजनीति में ख़ास तौर से समाज में जो नकारात्मकता, हिंसा फैल रही है, इसका मुकाबला एक्चुअली सकारात्मक राजनीति, प्रेम, करुणा भाव, सबको एक साथ लेकर उन चीज़ों के बारे में हम बात करें जो एक्चुअली हमारे भविष्य को, हमारे जीवन को सुधारें, हमारे समाज को सुधारें, हमारा जो आपसी प्रेम है उसको बढ़ाएं। बड़ा लंबा लेक्चर दे दिया मैंने। अच्छा।
Okay, so that's Priyanka Gandhi Vadra. She's now engaging in a virtual campaign. The Ladki Hu Lad Sakti Hu campaign is generating some traction, but the critical question is, does the Congress and the Samajwadi Party have the kind of virtual digital capabilities that the BJP does? Shantanu Gupta is an author, political analyst, he's the biographer of Yogi Adityanath, and I think this is one of the key questions. If rallying will be curtailed, if electioneering will be restricted, then who has the greater digital outreach? Does that, in your view, Shantanu, give the BJP an advantage over the others because they have WhatsApp groups, they have digital infrastructure which is far more granular than the opposition does?
I think Rahul, to a certain extent, right. Though like channels like Twitter, Facebook, all the big leaders from all the parties are present. But if I see the access to digital medium to the booth level, I remember during the Corona lockdown, 1.5 years lockdown, someone like Swatantra Dev Singh, someone like Sunil Bansal was taking booth meetings continuously. So now even there, let's say 400 seats or 350 booths on every seat on an average. Every booth worker is familiar to use a Google Meet or a Zoom or any online medium, because in last 1.5 years, someone like a Sunil Bansal or a Swatantra Dev had done multiple meetings with them. right? So big platforms, every leader is present, but going to the Karyakarta level, to the T, I think BJP is far.
No, but
far
that's
more
the point
strong.
I'm making, Sharad Pradhan, because
Yeah.
I was in Ayodhya recently and I saw a WhatsApp call going on between someone we were trying to interview, and once it got over, he said that this was a ward level WhatsApp conversation between the Karyakartas, which was being done by the BJP. And the first question that came to my mind at that moment was, can the Samajwadi Party, can the Congress pull off something like this? Do they have that kind of digital infrastructure? Omicron is upon us. There is likely to be some form of restriction, but do they have the kind of digital infrastructure to be able to campaign meaningfully, not just on YouTube and Facebook? That's important, but the kind of person by person, worker by worker, Karyakarta by Karyakarta penetration, does the opposition have that wherewithal?
Well, Rahul, I'm told that the Samajwadi Party did succeed in building a similar kind of infrastructure as far as their party workers are concerned, down to the grassroots level. But the point here is, but still, I'm sure they will not be able to match the kind of social media infrastructure BJP has built over the years, and the kind of people, experts that are involved in it. But the point is, it is not merely your party workers. How does your message reach the public? Well, so far BJP has, done a kind of carpet bombing of their advertising, and to a large extent, now that will stop once the election code of conduct is in place. So the idea is to send the message across to the people, to the voters. How will that work will depend on the kind of facility that people have down the line. It's fine that there are a lot of, now probably everybody carries a smartphone, but to reach across to everyone, I don't think is everybody's cup of tea or anybody's cup of tea.
Sheila Bhatt,
So
your sense of the state of play, how significant is this election for the BJP, especially the big one in Uttar Pradesh? You speak to top BJP leaders. What's your sense of their confidence level? Do they think they have this in the bag, or is the BJP, when they're having their own internal conversations, anxious about the final scoreline?
I think BJP is cautiously optimistic, and they think they are having an edge. There are three issues in the play. One is, the biggest one is that this entire national issues, all the range of national issues are also playing this state assembly election this time. This entire Modi's idea or vision, or BJP's vision or RSS vision of Hindu Rashtra, this the majoritarianism overriding minority issues, then COVID treatment, how government handled COVID. So all the national issues which we are talking and the entire nation is talking are also in the fray. But the biggest issue is law and order. That is how I see this election. That individual voters, everybody, caste wise, communal wise, everybody, region wise, there are three regions, western, eastern and Awadh, Lucknow area. So I think all UP resident, all UP voters will think, who can give my family security? I think that is the bottom line. And if Yadavs and Muslims and Dalits think otherwise, BJP is in trouble, and there will be a kind of a generalization that could help BJP or go against BJP. But to BJP, if you ask me how is BJP viewing, I think they are giving us 2-3 major statistics. One is that in 2017 election, the swing in favor of BJP was 24.667%. It's a huge swing, and the nearest competitor today of BJP remains Akhilesh Yadav and Samajwadi Party, who got 47 seats. BJP is 312. So what are we talking about? We are talking about what kind of a swing. So that is a reality check. Other parties who are competing with BJP, who are out to defeat BJP, will have to factor in.
Okay, so this was a pendulum. Right now the pendulum is loaded heavily towards the BJP.
Rahul,
Even if the pendulum swings, the question is the extent to which the pendulum will swing, because it needs to be a massive swing for the BJP's apple cart to be upset. We've spoken about Uttar Pradesh for a moment. I want to go across and spend a moment on Punjab. Harmeet Singh Shah joins us from there, and we'll try and get a sense of what's happening in Punjab. Bear with me for a moment as I call upon the Election Intelligence Dashboard to show us the latest, the existing electoral data from the state of Punjab. Now, in Punjab, it seemed for a while during the campaign that the Aam Aadmi Party was gathering momentum in 2017. But towards the end, their campaign lost steam. Kejriwal was accused of being in cahoots with Khalistanis. The momentum shifted in favor of Amrinder Singh and the Congress. Amrinder Singh is now no longer in the Congress. He's tied up with the BJP. As far as the seat share is concerned, the Congress starts with 77. The Aam Aadmi Party had 20 MLAs. They lost a few. The Akalis at 18. As far as vote share is concerned, it will be interesting to see the extent to which the Congress loses ground and the extent to which Aam Aadmi Party can go up. 24% is what the AAP got. In the last elections, the Congress was at 38. The Akalis, who at that time were with the BJP, at 31. This time, though, the Akalis are fighting separately. You have Amrinder Singh and the BJP fighting separately. You're traveling through the state of Punjab, Harmeet. Through your travels, do you see a massive wave building up one way or the other? Or do you think this will be a khichdi election, as it were, that you got 5 forces, all of them trying to chip away with the votes and no one clear picture emerging in the end?
Absolutely, there is no wave as such. As you mentioned, this is going to be a khichdi election. Punjab is in a state of, it's a point of, politically speaking, it's at a point of inflection. You had bipolar politics till 10 years ago, and 10 years later, there is going to be a 5-cornered contest. Now you have Akali Dal, you have Aam Aadmi Party, you have Congress, you have Captain Amrinder Singh plus BJP, and then there is this new party of farmers, which is Sanyukt Samaj Morcha, which is yet to be recognized by the Election Commission. So as of now, it's at a point of inflection, and voters, as I saw it, and when I met them, I realized that they are holding each and every political party to account. They are not at all submissive to anyone, be it the ruling establishment, be it the opposition, be it the other players. So with this aspect, one thing is going to be, I mean, as of now, one thing looks certain, that it's heading into a khichdi, hung assembly. That said, people here that who we speak with often say that it's better to have a hung assembly than to have a strong government, because strong government tend to be, quote-unquote, more dictatorial. This is the overall sentiment in Punjab as of now.
Sentiment at this moment, analytically the interesting question will be, is that the way it stays till the end? Because as this fog of confusion prevails in the minds of voters, will they pitch their lot one way or the other? Will Channi benefit from what happened with the Prime Minister's cavalcade over the past 72 hours, or will the momentum shift towards the Aam Aadmi Party, where if polls are showing that they're coming up in front and voters start realizing that maybe the AAP has a shot, will more of the undecided middle-of-the-road voters switch to AAP? Those will be important questions that will determine what ultimately happens in Punjab. Will it be a hodgepodge government in the end, or will there be a clear win? I'm slipping into a very quick break. We have a lot to talk about. Whenever there's an election, we have a lot to talk about. At 3:30 p.m., the Election Commission will be announcing the date of polls and counting day. The Election Intelligence Dashboard of India Today is up and running. We're going state by state, expert by expert, party by party, and we'll give you a sense of the state of play on the ground. I return on the other side of a quick break. Stay with us.